From the far reaches of the Milky Way galaxy, it's Retro Nerd Girl with a quick spoiler-free film review for you. Today, I'll be reviewing the movie The Golden Child, released in 1986. Starring Eddie Murphy, J.L. Raitt, and Charles Dance. Directed by Michael Ritchie. The synopsis is: Chandler Jarrell is a social worker who is on a case to find a missing girl. The case leads him to the Golden Child, who is kidnapped by a supernatural evil. Before there was Neo from the Matrix franchise, there was Chandler Jarrell, which this film proclaims is the one to save a Tibetan boy from an evil that could possibly mean the end of the world. Right off the bat, this film starts off with a groovy synth pop theme that I just absolutely love. I could listen to that all day. Then mixed in is some 80s rock pop and some heavy metal songs. So it's classic 1986 vibe where the 1980s were just becoming more and more exaggerated and ridiculous. And I absolutely, of course, love that too. There's an immersion of Asian culture, action adventure, fantasy, and comedy. Yes, this film is funny, but it's funny enough through the situations that Chandler gets himself into, since he is a fish out of water, even in his own world. Now, speaking of comedy, we have to address the Eddie in the room, Eddie Murphy that is. He's probably the number one reason that this film is so beloved by its loyal fans over the years. This is Eddie Murphy at the prime of his powers as a comedian and a little bit on a limitation for raunchy jokes that he'd become famous for. So this is a big departure for him, and there's something very understated about his performance that made Chandler a very likable character. There are some clear moments that Chandler is a hero, and that makes you really want to root for his character. Many of the funnier moments for Chandler is when he's dealing with the film's fantastic villain, Sardo Numspa. Their chemistry is so fun to watch. Sardo is played by one of my favorite late 80s villain actors, Charles Dance, with his feathered blowout hairdo. It's just magnificent. I think his hair even glows. Wow, he has such an incredible presence in this film. And that's what Sardo Numspa mainly does in this movie. He just shows up in a scene and looks around and elegantly says a few words before leaving the scene. They couldn't have gotten a better actor for that. I just only wish he was in more scenes. He actually has one of the best scenes in the film when the wall beside him visibly dissolves and he speaks with a demon from the underworld. That scene is just very breathtaking and very ambitious. I think all the special effects were very ambitious, and at the time it was fun to watch it in the 80s. Very imaginative. It was produced by the best in the business, Industrial Light and Magic. Now, in spite of the fact that it doesn't hold up today, they were all fantastic visual ideas. There's so much to like about this film, but there's a great deal of faults, with the film's production. The editing was probably the most obvious problem in the film. There were lots of weird shots and things that were spliced in that didn't always flow with the events of what's actually happening. It just didn't make sense, so you couldn't follow along very well. A lot of the action was very clunky and slow and PC, very very chip choppy, very, like I said, very hard to follow. So if that's something that you don't mind in a film, but it has a pretty decent story, some funny stuff. I think you're gonna like it if you see it. I would just suggest seeing it anyway, so then you could know what the big deal is all about. Now, I know a lot of people compare this film to Big Trouble in Little China because it was an Asian-themed fantasy film released in the same year and features a lot of the same actors. To me, the two films are similar in that respect, but the story and the lead characters couldn't be more different from one another, and I really like them both. I've often imagined a team up of the two characters from the two movies, kind of do like a fun comedic adventure together. In the 1980s, we had a few breakout fantasy films, but it's so hard to get fantasy films taken seriously, even today. To be quite honest, it is a tough market and very hard for a mass audience to latch on to pure fantasy films. A lot of people who criticize this film it's all about like finding it realistic at all. Do they think this is something that could possibly happen in our reality? And for a lot of people, absolutely not. However, being that it was, it's the 80s, and it was really meant to be a fun little dabble in the fantasy genre. It's a favorite of mine, and at the time I saw it, it seemed to be offering something fresh. My rating is a 7.9. That sums up my quick spoiler-free review. This is Retro Nerd Girl signing off. Take care, movie lovers. I'm off to my next review.